Hey everybody, it's Dr. Eric Balcavage, and we are back for the Thyroid Answers Podcast. With us today, of course, is Dr. Erica Riggleman, my partner in crime. How are you?
I'm doing great.
And we have a special guest. This is a very famous person. This is Dr. Doni Wilson, and she is a naturopathic physician from New York, and she is the author of a book called The Stress Remedy, which I got an official autographed copy 4 or 5 years ago at the first ShyCon conference. It was nice enough for her to autograph a book for me, so I have it. And it really is part of my inspiration to some point in time get my own thyroid book done. I'm still working on it, haven't gotten it done. And you're talking about finishing up your second, your third. I can't even get my first one finished. So congratulations on the first book. Congratulations on the second and third book. We can't wait till they come out. But thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So can you tell the people who maybe haven't heard about you yet, who you are, what you do in your practice?
Sure, of course. As you mentioned, I'm a naturopathic physician. I'm also trained as a midwife and a nutritionist. And I live in New York. I practice in New York and Connecticut. And really, I help patients wherever they are because I do very specialized work. I would say that I specialize in stress and how stress affects our bodies. And so when I've learned that over 18 years of seeing patients, I've really found an approach that works in terms of looking at any health issue as how stress is creating it, and therefore how we can reverse it by understanding the effects of stress.
I think that's awesome. And we talk about all the time that stress is a major cause of what's going on. I mean, it's neat to say, hey, I'm treating a leaky gut, or I'm treating X, or I'm treating Y symptoms or condition. But at the root of it, we're both big proponents that stress has a major impact on our physiology. It has a major impact on the changing of thyroid physiology specifically. Can I give us an explanation of what stress is and how it might impact us at a cellular level and especially from a thyroid physiology perspective?
Definitely. And that's the thing is a lot of times, well, first off, a lot of times we tend to ignore stress or kind of like not want to think about it or push it off and think we can't do anything about it, right? It's like this thing that's ever present, and yet we're trying to figure out how to sort of be with it. And certainly stress it's a part of life. In fact, I would even argue that it's essential to life. Even when I was training to be a midwife and studying stress as a midwife, I saw that there's a certain amount of stress that's needed in order for labor to happen smoothly and efficiently. And if there's not enough stress, labor doesn't happen well. And if there's too much stress, labor doesn't happen well. So I take that example of childbirth and extend it to any point in life, that we need a certain amount of stress to thrive and get us up in the morning and be inspired. And of course, there's certain stresses we choose, like being a parent and having a child and having a job or a career. Those are things that are part of our life. It's just that when stress gets to be too much for our bodies, then it starts to have some negative effects. And that's what we want to look at today is, when stress starts to overwhelm us, or when we aren't supporting our bodies enough with stress, that's when health issues start to develop. And the health issues are unique to the person. And sometimes oftentimes it involves the thyroid. But one other thing about stress is to know that we're not just talking about emotional stress. I mean, certainly emotional stress is a thing. Certainly trauma and life crises, that's definitely major stress. It's just that I like to also expand the definition of stress to include other stresses that we're exposed to, things like toxins in the air and the environment, even certain foods that could be a stress on our body because we know that they have a negative effect on our bodies, such as sugar or too much sugar. We know that becomes a stress to our cells in our body. Gluten is another example that often is a stress to our bodies. So looking at certain foods as a stress and certain ways of eating or not eating as a stress. So just expanding our definition of stress and saying, hey, even is lack of sleep a stress, right? And just having a long to-do list, if you think about it, there's a lot of different things that could be a stress. Basically anything that requires our body to respond, our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our adrenaline, to respond to it. And certainly in the moment, our bodies are built to do that. It's just that when we're exposed to ongoing stress all day, you know, one thing after the next, our body doesn't have enough chance for stress recovery. And that's the key, is we want to look at our health and our lifestyle and go, how can we create where, yes, there's some stress, but there's also stress recovery so our body can get things back in sync again.
Yeah, I think in our society, it's one extreme or the other. Either people completely ignore the stress and try to pretend like it doesn't exist, or on the complete other spectrum, they know that they're way too stressed and they're trying everything that they possibly can to reduce the stress, which I think makes them even more stressed, and it becomes the kind of this vicious cycle that plays into people's chronic health problems.
Exactly. And I talk about that in the Stress Remedy book, you know, this either trying to be the superhero and just kind of like get through it and hope it doesn't get you, or this kind of blissful state of like thinking that we're going to be able to somehow, you know, eliminate it by doing every possible stress relief, and somehow then eventually coming to the middle and realizing, okay, we're not going to get rid of it and it doesn't help to ignore it. We really need to learn how to be healthy while stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when in our world in functional medicine, and you're well aware of this, but we talk about something called inflammation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And inflammation, sometimes people think of as this negative thing, and well, we got to take aspirin, I got to take Tylenol, I got to get rid of my inflammation. But inflammation ties with stress very well. Stress can trigger some of the inflammatory response, and we think sometimes of this inflammatory response as a negative thing. But again, it is when it's kept in check. Some stress and the inflammation it creates is healthy. If I go to the gym and I want to create stress to my muscle, that creates some inflammation to my muscle. That allows then the body to help rebuild, regenerate, and build a bigger, stronger tissue. It is when that stress gets out of control that it creates this bigger inflammatory cascade. Kind of take the difference between, you know, having a little yard fire, burning your yard trash, and versus like an inferno in the forest, right? Big difference.
Exactly. Yes.
So when we talk about stress, you talk about different types of stress, right? And nobody's going to get rid of all their stress, right? There's good stress, there's bad stress. What are some of the things that you see how stress impacts somebody's physiology? What are the things somebody should look at and say, oh, maybe I'm overwhelmed with stress? What are some of those things?
So the way I think about it after looking at all the research over and over is I think of it in terms of 4 major systems in the body that get affected by stress. There's the digestion. So for example, we know that when our bodies are overwhelmed with stress, we don't digest food as well. And leaky gut or intestinal permeability is very much increased, as is it's more likely to have imbalanced gut bacteria. You know, the microbiome gets out of balance from stress. So we know the stress is greatly affecting the digestion. And for some people, that's the main thing they notice. You know, they're getting, say, IBS or heartburn, and that's the way that they really know stress is starting to affect their physiology. The second system that gets affected is the hormones, all the different hormones in the body. So first, we know cortisol, which is our main stress hormone, is going to be usually would increase when a person is exposed to stress. And if a person's under ongoing stress, that cortisol might stay elevated, or it may become depleted at different times a day. So we'll get very interested in cortisol. And cortisol is actually what then affects these other systems. So it's going to affect the thyroid for sure. And it's going to affect all the other hormones too. The ovaries are not going to be ovulating as well when we're under stress and the cortisol is high and the thyroid is off track. And insulin responds as well. Usually there'll be more insulin resistance and higher blood sugar levels when a person's more stressed. So when we go through and look at each different hormone, we'll see that they all get thrown off track by stress. The third system is the immune system. And what happens in the immune system is, it's not, you know, for a lot of people when they're stressed, the immune system drops and they're much more susceptible to infections. You know, think of like, say you're really stressed and then you catch a cold. your immune system's down, you're going to catch that next virus. For some people, the stress becomes autoimmunity. So for their immune system, the immune system goes to more of an autoimmune protecting from oneself. And other people, it's more like allergies, hay fever and asthma and those kind of symptoms. But we can, again, it's very individualized, right? Based on that person's genetics, how is that stress going to affect their immune system? The fourth system to get affected is the nervous system. So this would be like thinking of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and GABA. And we know that when we're stressed, and not only adrenaline, for example, is also considered a neurotransmitter. And we know when we're stressed, adrenaline responds. That's what speeds up your heart and speeds up your mind and helps you to react to the stress. But when we're exposed to stress ongoing, the adrenaline can either stay too elevated or it can become depleted. Serotonin often becomes depleted. So does the dopamine. And so we start to see more and more issues with mood, say anxiety, low mood, and even memory and focus start to get affected.
Yeah, I definitely think that the stress playing into all of those systems is really huge, because obviously when the body is stressed for a long period of time, it wants to try to slow you down. And I think that's where it comes into we've seen in our practices where the stress response, it's trying to shut the thyroid gland down, whether that's autoimmunity or at the cellular level. It's purposely trying to slow you down so that you feel fatigued and tired, and then you're sad and you want to isolate yourself, because it's really trying to pull the emergency brake, so that saying, hey, you need to slow down and you need to, relax and slow down and overcome this stress so that we can actually have that kind of recovery time, as opposed to where a lot of us in our society just try to push on the gas and we want to keep pushing through this. If I could just get through this week, things will be better. If I just get through this deadline, things will be better. And the body really is trying to tell you to slow down. And it's really that stress response that's initiating a lot of those metabolic cascades.
I love that. But I love how you're describing it as, to show how our bodies make these responses, yes, to help us respond to stress, but then there's also built-in responses to help us recover. Like you're saying, it's built-in response to say, hey, you need to now rest and recover. But sometimes we ignore that and just push past it. And then we never get that recovery time.
Yeah, Doni. So we talked, I think we did one of our previous podcasts, we talked about allostasis, because in sometimes even in medicine, and even in conventional medicine, in functional medicine, sometimes we look at the changes we see. Oh, you have adrenal dysregulation, or you have thyroid dysregulation. Like, those are the problems. And those are the things that people then want to treat. Oh, you got a thyroid disorder, I'm going to treat it. You have an adrenal disorder, I'm going to treat it. You have a weight issue, I'm going to treat it. Yeah. We take a look at a little different swing at this. I think you'll kind of agree with us to this point, that when we have this load of stress, and Erica was just alluding to this, is that these changes aren't mistakes, right? These aren't errors in physiology of the body. These are adaptations that the body's trying to change physiology to be able to deal with this new stress load. When you have a bunch of stress on the system, the body needs a certain amount of energy. And to deal with that stress, we have to shut down some systems that aren't as important: hormone physiology, digestive physiology. Those don't become as important as things like our fight or flight system, and how do I get out of this stress state? What do I need to do to fight the enemy? Can you kind of build on that a little bit?
Oh, I think that's exactly it. So even though I'm talking about it as here's the effects of stress, there is a reason why, the body it's going to know, hey, I got to respond to this stress. I can't be worrying about digesting food or getting pregnant right now because I need to deal with the stress. And so the thing that usually is an aha moment for people is when they go, oh my gosh, so if I am always stressed, when is my body going to have a chance to digest food? If I'm trying to get pregnant, how's that going to happen? So we start to realize, hey, we got to understand our physiology in order to give our body what it needs, so that we can work with our bodies. And this is why I love that you guys are getting into such detail with your work, because I love that just people getting to understand, hey, this is how our physiology works. So if we understand that, then we want some stress, and we want our body to respond well when we're stressed, but we also want to take breaks so we can, sit down and eat our food and chew and have attention for our digestion, so that we can digest our food and get our nutrients.
Right. So your approach in your practice would be, if we use an analogy, like if the smoke detectors went off in my house or the fire alarm went off, you wouldn't want to be going up and saying, well, let's just turn it off, or I'll give you earplugs so you don't hear it. Right.
Right.
Right. Which is what happens many times in both conventional and functional medicine.
Yes.
If you have a digestive problem, let me just give you some digestive enzymes and we won't worry about anything else. And that should fix it. Right. You just have to take them forever. That's just a herbal or a nutritional model that matches and mirrors what's going on in conventional medicine. And I think when in your book, that's a big part of the gist of the book is, hey, let's just not cover this stuff up. Let's get to root cause, right?
Yeah. And there, depending on, of course, where a person is when we start, we might use things that support the body, to help get it back on track again. So we might be supporting the digestion or supporting other hormone function to begin with, but it's with this overall knowing and goal of helping the body to reset, to get to a place where, like we can remove whatever it was that were stresses as much as we can, right? So if there were toxins that were stresses, or maybe there's now overgrowing bacteria in the gut that are creating more toxins, or, we want to look at or food sensitivities. Let's get those stresses that we can remove out of the way. And then let's help the body to rebalance. Let's get the digestion working well on its own again. Let's get the hormones and the cells working well on their own again. And then ultimately we get to a sort of a phase 3, which is this, I call it building resilience, where you've now created a balance again. And now we just want to maintain that, knowing that you're going to go out in the world and be stressed. What things can you do on a day-to-day basis that help your body maintain that optimal functioning, cellular, digestion, hormones, everything. We want them to just keep working smoothly. So the message is that it's possible to recover, because a lot of people, I think, come to this going, oh my gosh, I'm tired, my digestion feels awful, my hair is falling out, what am I going to do? And I always feel like one of the first messages is it's possible to recover. You can recover from stress. We can get these systems and cells working again. And then in that process, you end up learning how to maintain that over time.
Yeah. And I think sometimes patients come to us and they want that magic pill that's going to take all their stress away. And that doesn't exist. You have to look at the environment that you're living at. You have to make changes that are in your environment, but then you need to go back and you need to fix some of the damage, if you will, that's been done by all the stressors. So, in our, we're looking for that magic pill to fix everything. And they're really, there's supplements out there that are going to help you adapt to stress, but there's not a pill out there that's going to take your stress away.
Yeah.
Or the other piece of that is, and it really depends on each individual, right? So if your issue is I can't really work on all that stuff, I just need some support, and I want a functional medicine approach versus a conventional medicine approach. I get that point too, because for some people, they're just not at a point in their life where they really have or can or want to put that time and investment in towards their own health. And although we may not always agree that that's the best thing to do, that's where that person is at that point in time. But when we want to really help somebody in the long term, we want to help them identify what's really creating those issues, clean up what they can, identify the fact that they're never going to get rid of stressors, nor do they want to or need to. They just have to learn how to balance it. And that's one of those things that it comes down to. So Dr. Doni, if you were to give somebody some, they're stressed out, they've got thyroid issues, they got all these different issues going on, what are some of the key tools that you would kind of maybe help our listeners, like 2 or 3 things that you could give them to say, hey, these are the 2, 3, 4, 5 things to start looking at before you even have to, call your office or our office to ask for help? What are the things that you should really start with?
Oh, I love it. I would start even with sleep. Like, sleep is such our stress recovery time, and we tend to sort of, leave that for last, or think that sleep is a luxury, right? It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, if I I even get 6 hours sleep, and everything else is a priority instead of the sleep. And so a lot of times I think just kind of going, wow, sleep is such a valuable stress recovery time. If we can reprioritize that and go, how do we, is there, can you get yourself into bed earlier? Can we help if you were having trouble getting to sleep? Let's solve that. Let's get you to sleep better, helping you sleep through the night. And really the goal, I would say, is to get at least 7.5 hours of sleep each night, if not 9 hours. And during that, just know that that's the time when, right, our brains are doing their clean out process, our cells are doing their recovery. It's essential sleep. And it's something you could start working on already.
So I want to touch on that because I know this is a thing that you're thinking about. Let's get a book out there because there's so much information, misinformation. But people are maybe listening to this and saying, Dr. Doni, if I could sleep, I would. I can't stay asleep. So what are some of the tips that you might give somebody to say, if you have a hard time getting to sleep, these are the things that you might want to consider. And if you have a hard time staying asleep, these are the things you might consider. What would those things be?
Well, first off, and I think a lot of people hear these, sort of sleep hygiene tactics, but I think it's always worth relooking at and just kind of go in your bedroom even during the day and go, hey, is it dark in here? Do I need some blackout shades? Is it quiet, or is there something waking me up? Is either light waking me up or sound waking me up? Is my mattress, how's my mattress? Do I have an organic mattress, or is there toxins in my mattress that are disrupting my body and causing stress? Just have a look at your bedroom and go, what can I do to make my sleep better just based on my sleep environment? And that might require little shifts. Even if you're living with someone, you might have to, have a conversation. How do we make it so that, sleep is a priority and, for both, whoever you're living with, to really, sometimes it does take a conversation about it to have that improve. I also would look at blood sugar levels, like for a lot of people, say if you're having a late night snack that's high carb or even alcohol late at night, that's going to disrupt your blood sugar. And so when people are waking up in the night, it's often because their blood sugar level is dropping and you're waking up. You might even wake up feeling hungry. So to look at, okay, how can I, be not having, sugar? Some people, you figure, oh my gosh, I've been stressed all day. I'm going to drink some alcohol and that's going to make me tired to go to sleep. But it actually is the reverse. They've shown that alcohol actually causes more problems with sleep. And we want to find some other solutions for stress other than alcohol, because it's important to have some de-stress time in the evening, but there's ways to do it without alcohol so that you don't have alcohol as a stress. So those are a couple examples. What I like to do once patients come to me and say, okay, I've tried all of that, I've got the perfect sleep environment, I'm not having carbs before bed, it's like, but I still can't get to sleep. So we're going to look at, then I would start to look at doing some testing to really understand, because to me, there are tests available to understand our physiology better. So let's use them, instead of guessing, let's actually look at the physiology. Actually, I didn't mention yet melatonin, but I'm sure that's a hormone you guys talk about. Melatonin is the hormone that increases when we're in darkness, and it should be elevated when we're sleeping. It tells our body, it's sleep time, it's repair time. And the thing is, if we're exposed to a lot of light in the evening, then our melatonin is not going to go up, right? Because our brains are waiting to be exposed to darkness to tell the melatonin to increase. So looking at, are you getting exposed to light either from devices or other lights in your environment in the evening or before bed, that could be disrupting your melatonin level. I see you wanted to say something there.
Well, I think that's a good point what you talk about. When we're talking about people trying to get to sleep at night, definitely having that calmer time, quieter time to kind of gear down in the evening becomes important, even though especially if you're a mom, probably more moms than dads, running around, doing whatever the kids need to do, getting prepped and ready for the next day and doing all that planning. But the devices, I mean, these things that we have in front of us, the computer that we're all in front of right now. Do you talk to patients, in the prep, like the blue screens and even the blue blocking light glasses? Do you talk about those things with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So there's these, there's these glasses that block the blue light. They're usually called amber glasses, and there's a bunch of them out now, even some that are pretty cool looking you can get and put on in the evening. And so if you are, say, watching a movie, or if you need to have your computer up at night, then having these blue light blocking glasses can help so that the light is not inhibiting your melatonin. So then when you are ready to go to bed, your melatonin's there and ready to help you. But what I was saying in terms of testing is we can test for these things. We can test for melatonin levels and find out if your melatonin's low. So if we do a test, it usually would be either saliva or urine test. We can see the melatonin levels. If it's low, then you've got some confirmation. Okay, now I need to go back to my environment and figure out how can I support my melatonin levels. We also know that melatonin is made in our bodies from serotonin. So I would want to look at how's the serotonin level. Is the serotonin depleted? We know that serotonin is made in our gut. So if serotonin, we measure serotonin in urine usually, or the serotonin metabolites can also be measured in urine. So if we see that they're low, then oftentimes I'm thinking, okay, this is a sign that definitely the person has been stressed, but also it means that we need to go look at their digestive health and see what needs to happen there so that their body can start making healthy serotonin levels again. Now, when it comes to neurotransmitters, they're all made from nutrients in our body. Sometimes neurotransmitters seem like this far off, mysterious thing, but what happens is the protein that we eat is broken down into amino acids. Hello, Puppy.
Somebody's at my door.
I love that. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You keep going.
So the protein is broken down to amino acids, and the amino acids are used in our body to make these neurotransmitters. So tryptophan, for example, turns it into 5-HTP, turns into serotonin. And so we need to make sure that we're not only digesting the protein, but absorbing those amino acids in order to get the serotonin production. But it also means that we can, if serotonin is depleted, we can use the nutrients, supplements, say 5-HTP, to help increase the level while the person's recovering. And then again, like you mentioned, Eric, the main goal is for them to be able to maintain that healthy serotonin level over time without having to rely on supplements, if possible. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to touch base on that just a minute, because people might be thinking, hey, I can support serotonin, that may make me feel better, that may help my melatonin. There's a couple of things we got to touch base on. Maybe I'll let you just cover it, but I'll kind of give you the teaser.
Sure.
Because we're talking about stress, and we talk about stress and what happens in the body when we have stress. That tryptophan, which is that amino acid that can be used to make serotonin, under a stress situation, the body actually diverts that tryptophan away from serotonin production. And actually increases the conversion to something called quinolinic acid, which is a neurotoxin. So not as simple as saying, hey, let me just give more tryptophan, more amino acids, because if you're in that stress situation, right, you're going to make more quinolinic acid.
Yeah.
The other part of that, and I'll kind of let Dr. Doni talk about this a little bit too, is under those stress conditions, the body increases these inflammatory proteins.
Yeah.
And part of that process then is to upregulate the clearance of serotonin. So your body's trying to really deplete serotonin in two different directions when you're under stress, and lead to the drop in melatonin. So I'll let you touch base on those things a little bit.
Well, and I think you're exactly explaining why it is that when we measure those levels, when a person's been stressed, why they're low. So it's like sometimes we need that to measure it and see it in front of us to really believe it and go, oh my gosh, stress has been affecting me. My body's been, like you said, diverting the serotonin to deal with inflammation. And so now no wonder my mood is low. I'm not sleeping good. So this is why those negative effects of stress develop. So what we have to do at that point in time is go, okay, now we see what stress has been up to, trying to help us out. how can we then start to make shifts in the direction of helping that to recover? And I think exactly what you're describing is why, sometimes I think for patients, it's, you come in and you might hear your practitioner say, well, we can't use tryptophan quite yet because of this. And it maybe you're like, well, I don't understand. Why can't I? I heard somewhere that I could, so being able to come back and go, well, if your practitioner is saying, no, we got to do this in step-by-step fashion, it's probably for these kind of physiological reasons. We need to first help to remove the stress, decrease the inflammation, so that we're working with the body. We're making it so the body's no longer trying to do that stress response. Then we can very gradually help the body recover those serotonin levels. And like you mentioned, we might not be using tryptophan because the tryptophan could go other places. We might instead be using 5-HTP, which is a more direct route to serotonin. But it is important to do it step by step. And I think that's why, a lot of times instead of just jumping right into a sleep product that might have, say, 5-HTP and melatonin in it, you might be trying that and be like, I still can't sleep. Well, it might be because your body's not ready for 5-HTP and melatonin yet. We got to help calm all that cell danger response and inflammation. And then when you try those nutrients, and again, your body's going to be like, yay, I need that. I'm ready for that. So it's sometimes people, I think, kind of give up on products, but without realizing, hey, it just might be your body's not quite ready for it yet.
Right. We've talked about that. Go ahead, Erica.
I think those are great points about, just the whole mechanism of, educating people on, looking at the underlying mechanism. And just switch gears a little bit, you being a midwife, I'm sure that you see, that there's increasing rates of infertility relating to stress and what it's doing to the body. When a woman is thinking about, maybe having a baby, maybe getting pregnant, what are your kind of steps that you lay out to them, maybe for them to be starting to think about maybe 1 year before, 6 months, and even before, maybe a couple of weeks before? I know in our society we're okay, I want to get pregnant now. What can I do now? I think that we need to take a step back and say there's a larger preparation that needs to take place. So what are you recommending to women, as a kind of like a timeline to prepare their body, because that's a huge stress on a woman's body.
Well, and exactly leads from what we were just talking about. If you're finding that you're, say you're not sleeping well, or you're feeling tired, or you're stressed and it's affecting you, and yet you're like, hey, I really am ready to start a family, then you may want to go through a process of helping your body recover from stress first. So if you have time, like if you have 6 months or a year, then I would sit down and say, hey, let's look at what are the stresses that are happening for you now that we could work on and help your body recover from. That might be, maybe there's some food sensitivities and leaky gut happening, and we need to, shift up the diet, get the blood sugar balance. So taking sugar, decreasing sugar and really trying to stabilize blood sugar levels. We know the blood sugar really affects the ovaries, by the way, when blood sugar levels are either elevated or fluctuating high and low. The ovaries are listening to that, and the ovaries are not going to work as well when the blood sugar's off. So I start with, hey, how can we just make sure you're having small meals with, low sugar or low carb content, more, get in those healthy proteins and healthy fats so we can drop the inflammation level, get the blood sugar balanced, and heal the intestines, get the leaky gut healed, maybe get the bacteria in the gut rebalanced if the person's experiencing a lot of bloating or digestive distress. We may need work on that. We know that when moms have healthier gut, decreased leaky gut, balanced healthy bacteria, it really is good for babies. It means that the baby's going to be less likely to have allergies, less likely to have infections. So you can think of it as what you're doing now for your body is actually helping you for your baby's health, and probably not just your baby's health when they're a baby, but your baby's health for the rest of their life. So it really makes a big difference too. I think if you can take some time to do some stress recovery before getting pregnant, and those are some examples of it, but thyroid is another one that's so important. Often with stress, as we mentioned, the thyroid is under functioning. Now, whether that's, say if it's autoimmune or what we call Hashimoto's, where the immune system is starting to attack the thyroid gland and therefore decrease thyroid function, which to me, Hashimoto's, we know is linked back to the same leaky gut and gluten sensitivity. So it's back to, if we need to address Hashimoto's, let's go back and get the leaky gut healed and change the diet and use some nutrients to help prevent those antibodies. Or say if it's that the thyroid's underfunctioning just from cellular stress, say that the nutrients become depleted. We know that with stress and leaky gut, we often become depleted in a lot of nutrients, including iron and vitamin D. Iron is essential for the thyroid. I'm sure you guys talk about that a lot. And for thyroid conversion of T4 to T3, we need iron. Iron is also essential for pregnancy, because when there's a pregnancy and growing a baby, the body has an increased need for iron. So if you think about it in terms of, you put iron on the list and vitamin D and the B vitamins as well. So what I do is I recommend that women do some certain blood tests to find out, so we can measure iron or ferritin in the blood and find out how are those levels doing. We can look at vitamin D levels. We can look at homocysteine and understand the B vitamins. And we haven't mentioned MTHFR, but that's definitely something. I help a lot of women who have MTHFR who are trying to get pregnant, because it's something maybe they've heard of or and then maybe not had enough help with. So so we look at homocysteine, and then we also look at thyroid, because if the nutrients are depleted and the cells are stressed, the thyroid's going to be under functioning, and maybe the T4, T3 levels are going to be low. So we want to really pay attention to that and help get the thyroid functioning better, because we know that healthy thyroid function is essential for babies.
And we want to make sure, as we're talking about thyroid function, we're talking about the gland and we're talking about the physiology at the cell. Mm-hmm. And as Dr. Erica have talked about multiple times, and Dr. Doni's talking about today, is stress. You can have a wonderfully functioning thyroid gland, but in a stress state, what happens at that cellular level is you wind up deactivating your thyroid hormone. So you, instead of converting your T4 to T3, your T4 can get deactivated to reverse T3. So you may go in there, if you have the symptoms of hypothyroidism, tired, fatigue, thinning hair, gaining weight, those are all signs that you're having cellular thyroid physiology problems. And those are things where you want to take note of those and say, okay, maybe my physiology isn't working as good, because thyroid physiology is critical to getting pregnant and then maintaining a pregnancy and having a healthy child. And as Dr. Doni was saying, what you do to prepare and prep yourself for pregnancy determines really the health of your child for the rest of their life. I mean, it's really, really important to make sure that you do the best job you can to get yourself prepared for a pregnancy. And that doesn't always happen. A lot of times pregnancies happen.
Yeah, we don't. Sometimes they happen by accident. Yeah,
right. Sometimes they just happen. But and maybe that's another reason why, when you're in that age frame and you're not working to not get pregnant, it's crucial to try and do your best to maintain a higher state of health.
Not to mention the stress that is played on your body when you're trying not to get pregnant. If you're on birth control, that adds a whole different stress to the body.
It's very true. The birth control pills, they can be depleting nutrients. We know for sure they deplete a lot of the B vitamins. And we also, I've seen recently how the birth control pills can increase inflammation in the body. And so it's this, yes, it's one of the only and most common birth control solutions for women, but it definitely can create a stress that, you're probably going to want to do some recovery from. If you're, say you're just coming off the pill and you're wanting to get pregnant soon, all the more reason to do some of these tests and evaluate what are my nutrient levels, how's my thyroid doing, how's, even some of these other things we haven't necessarily talked about yet, like cortisol levels and adrenal function. and really, say, hey, let me just see. It's a nice time in life to evaluate your health and just go, where am I? What needs attention? How has stress affected me by this point in time? And and it can be very motivating. I find for a lot of women, it's one time in their life where they feel like, because it's much easier for us to do something for someone else than for ourselves. But the nice thing about pregnancy is it ends up by doing something for your future baby. You're actually doing something for yourself, your own health. And I think it's a really cool thing, because it's a chance for us to learn how to do some self-care and pay attention to our health and go, wow, how has stress affected me? How is my thyroid functioning? And I love what you're mentioning. So when I recommend doing thyroid blood work, and not only do the TSH, because a lot of practitioners will just order a TSH or maybe just TSH in a thyroid panel. I definitely recommend make sure to ask for a free T4 and a free T3 and a reverse T3, so that you can really evaluate what's happening. Are your cells doing this, what you were mentioning in terms of turning T4 into reverse T3, which reverse T3 I think of as just inactive. We don't want a lot of reverse T3 because it's not doing anything. It's just an inactive version. You want the free T3, because the free T3, which is, as you mentioned, it's not made in your thyroid gland. The thyroid's making the T4. Then it has to go out into your body. And that's when it gets turned into this T3 that can actually help. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what is the thyroid doing? What does it do anyway? It's help. Yes, it helps with metabolism, which means that when thyroid function is low, some people will gain a little bit of weight or a lot of weight, but also thyroid is affecting mood and digestion and skin and ovary function. And it's amazing, right? It affects so many places in the body. Probably everything in the body is affected by the thyroid.
Yeah, we talk about the metabolism when we think about weight, right? But thyroid is affecting the metabolism of every cell. Right? Every cell has its own set of metabolism. And so if you think about metabolism, like I'm gaining weight, I'm losing weight, every cell has to go through that same process. And so the same stressors that may cause you to gain weight are the same stressors that are causing you to either increase the activation of thyroid hormone at each individual cell or deactivate the thyroid hormone at those individual cells. And it is the either increased activation of thyroid hormone or the deactivation of thyroid hormone at the cellular level that creates the symptoms. Symptoms aren't occurring because your gland is dysfunctional, because we can give somebody thyroid hormone, restore their physiology if we just give them enough hormone. So it's really, the gland's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not just about the gland. It really is what happens at that cellular level. It's like your car. You can have a full gas tank, and it is important to have gas in your car for the car to run. But if it doesn't get to the engine, the car's not going to run, right? If you don't have an engine, you don't have spark plugs, you don't have all those other pieces. So it's not just about the gas, the thyroid hormone, and the gland that makes it. It's all about what's happening at that cellular level, right? And you'd agree with that.
It's amazing how, like, say I first meet with a patient and we look at the TSH and free T4 and free T3 and reverse T3, and maybe we see, wow, maybe it's not too far from where we want it, but it's definitely not perfect. And I'll say to them, hey, before we just jump in and start giving some thyroid hormone, let's see how this changes just by addressing all these other factors. Let's get you sleeping better. Let's get your blood sugar balanced. Let's address the leaky gut and imbalanced blood, see if there's any toxins you're exposed to, maybe toxins even from skincare products or a mattress like I talked about, because we know that these stresses, I call them all stresses, we know those are the stresses that are inhibiting this cellular function you're talking about. When we get into the biochemistry of the cells, right, the things we know that inhibit those biochemical processes come down to things like inflammation, which often is coming from the digestive tract, toxins from our environment, even alcohol, if we're consuming too much alcohol, inhibits our cells from doing their job. And so when you start to realize that because it's sometimes hard to imagine, right, that our bodies are made up of cells. It's like, we just think we're walking around, like we take for granted that our body is trillions of cells. So I love what you're saying, because it's like, each one of those little cells has a job to do each day. And one of those jobs is to activate our thyroid hormone. But if those cells are overwhelmed with all these stresses, it's not going to be able to do a good job at that. And then we're going to start to feel the effects of it.
Right. It's a big company, big community, big organization, right, within us. So it's really important.
Yeah.
I know we're running short on time, but you talked about giving somebody thyroid hormone or maybe helping somebody with those things. I want to get your opinion. I know I have an opinion on this. I'm sure Erica will weigh in a little bit too. In some models, people say, okay, well, T4 is not working, right? We're going to give you Synthroid. They don't feel better. So I think we're going to be better off if we just give you T3 and we'll give you the mix, and that should fix it. And my argument to that is, if T4 isn't being converted well, it's because of the stress at the cellular level. So the body's deactivating that, right? It's saying, hey, we already did this by damaging the gland. We are already shutting this thyroid physiology thing down. Now you're flooding me with more T4, and now I have to work harder to deactivate it. And then somebody says, well, T4 is not working, so we'll just give you T3. That's what your body needs anyway. And I think they miss a big piece of the physiology there. If the body's and the cells are in a deactivating state, that T3 is going to be deactivated as well, because that too can be deactivated, but not to reverse T3, but it gets deactivated to T2. Can you touch on that point a little bit? Maybe you have a different philosophy than what I do.
Well, and I think I guess the way I look at it is we want to optimize the body every way. We don't want to just fill in with a hormone, any hormone. Even I would say the same for cortisol or, any hormone that we might be talking about, pregnenolone or others, right? We don't want to just sort of like stick a hormone in there and think that that's going to fix it. What we want to do is the way I say it is we want to help your body do its best job first. How can we help your thyroid do its best job, your cells do their best job, your ovaries do the best job, what can we do to really create that? Because then it's really your body doing the work. Now, there are some situations where, we might get the body to 92% and there might be an 8% left over, where then maybe a little bit of T3 would help. But we've got their body working as best as it can, and we're only filling in for the gap that hasn't been able to be recovered. Then I think that's very different than just filling in, 50% with T3. It's a very different philosophy. And I think it's a really important point that you're making. It takes a lot more time, both for the practitioner and the patient. It takes a lot more carefulness and attention to make that happen, right? Because we're talking about really helping that person to understand what diet changes and lifestyle changes in order to make that even possible. But I know it's possible because I've seen it in my practice, and that's how I work with my patients too, is let's get your body working as best as it can. And if we find that there's still a gap we need to fill in, okay, but at least we know we've got your body doing its best job.
Right. And I would agree with that point. I think it isn't that these things can't be helpful, but when I see people, they say, well, I did Synthroid, levothyroxine, none of that works. So we just switched to T3. And now my heart's racing. I got palpitations, but I'm still hypothyroid symptoms. And what's going on? I'm like, just because you gave the more usable form by the cells, your body, you're increasing what's going on in one aspect of your physiology, but your body's still fighting the same thing that was causing the deactivation of thyroid hormone is still there. Your body's still trying to deactivate it. So some areas are getting flooded with T3 and that's revving those areas up. The other areas are still not getting the thyroid hormone they need because the body's working hard to deactivate it. Erica, would you agree with that point?
Oh, absolutely. And I see this frequently where, again, it's people want a quick fix. And a lot of times the medication that's their answer. And, that's in the regular medical round that's what they offer them. And so, when I look at it, there's a reason why all this is happening, and just giving, more of that hormone sometimes makes people feel a little bit better because it's putting a Band-Aid on it, but it really doesn't fix those underlying mechanisms. And at some point, something else is going to surface saying, hey, something's not right. This needs to be fixed.
And it's not just conventional medicine. We do this sometimes in
absolutely
as well, right? Well, well, you look like you're B6 deficient, so I'll just give you plenty of B6. And the person says, well, that made me feel worse. Well, it couldn't have. It's B6. Well, absolutely it could have, because be under a stress condition, and we talk about this with the cell danger response, the body, we just talked about it with tryptophan, right? Under a stress response, the body diverts tryptophan to make neurotoxin. Under a healthy response, it diverts it to make D3 and serotonin, right? And melatonin, good things that make us feel better. So under non-stress situations, the body uses tryptophan to be helpful and beneficial to help us grow, develop. But under stress conditions, the body takes that same molecule and drives it into a substance to help try and kill a threat or help get rid of something that it feels is a threat. So we have to be really careful at the point that we intervene and say, okay, we want to get you stable, but we just can't flood the system. We can't just make these things go away with a medication or a supplement. That's not how the physiology works. We put stuff into the body. The body's going to do with it. The cells are going to do with that nutrient or hormone what the cell and the body sees as best. We may say, well, I'm allergic to it. I'm sensitive to it. You're not allergic to it. You're not sensitive to it. These are natural products that are in every food that you eat. The problem is that the body is innately doing with it what is the most protective for the individual cells. We have to be really cautious when we intervene. And sometimes that's where I try, when people come to see me, I know it's the same for you, Eric, and I'm Doni, Dr. Doni, I'm sure it's the same with you. When they come in with bags of supplements, one of the first things you do is you say, okay, these things, we got to wean all these things down. There's no way you need 20 supplements every day to be healthy. That's the wrong approach. So when you come to a practitioner like one of us, we, instead of saying, hey, we got to give you the next thing, one of the biggest things we want to do is take a bunch of stuff away, simplify it, get back down to the basics: diet, sleep. Are we taking good care of our nutrition? What's our emotional stressors? What's our toxicity level? What's our environment like? How can we kind of thin down those external stressors so we can get the body to chill, heal, and repair? And then we can start trying to fix stuff with some of the nutritional or even medical medicines if those are really truly needed. But from our standpoint, from a naturalistic standpoint, we try and do as much of that with food, diet, lifestyle modification, right?
Yeah. I call it care. So C is for clean eating, A is for adequate sleep, R is for reducing stress, and E is for exercise. So you can think of it as like, just, we start with these care activities. And when we can, if we can master that, and I know sometimes sometimes they seem like the simplest things, sometimes we take for granted, but you had just explained why it's so important to master these care activities, which is what I also teach people to do in my stress remedy program. We do mastery of the care activities, because exactly what you're saying, then we can get the body to a place where it's, instead of being in a constant stress mode, it's now in a healthy mode where it can then use these nutrients in a way that helps you feel good. So I love it. Exactly.
Yeah, I like to look at it like if I was a soldier, right, and a dad, under non-stress situations, I'm loving my kid, I'm taking care of my family, I'm doing my family thing. But under stress situations, my job as a soldier is to go fight, right? And so the cells of the body are the similar way. If you in a more relaxed, more stressed state, the cells are going to do things to help build the bodies bigger, stronger, faster, right? Help it heal, repair. But under stress states, we go into fight mode. We go in, and that's what the body is designed to do. So instead of trying to force the cells to change, force the soldier to not be a soldier in a stress situation, that's not going to work. They're innately trained to be a soldier in a stress situation. So let's just change the stress so the soldier can go back to being a dad versus having to do the fighting. Does that make sense?
I love it. And I'm so glad to have this conversation with you both. I'm really hoping it helps a lot of people. How great what you're doing. So thank you for helping to teach everybody all about this.
Well, we're happy to have you on. We're getting to the end of our time, and we appreciate you being on. We probably I think we barely scratched. I only got 1 or 2 of my questions that I wrote down.
Oh my gosh, we covered such good stuff. So I'm happy to come back if you ever want to talk more.
We'll have you back on, no doubt about it. So if people want to reach out to you, find out, we'll put the information wherever the podcast is. But why don't you tell people the name of your office, how they can find you, where your book's available?
The easiest is just drdoni.com. Doni is D-O-N-I. So it's just, you can just go to drdoni.com. I write a lot of blogs, so that if you like to read blogs about these kind of topics, that's a good place to find me, including, the things we talked about today. And then my book, the Stress Remedy book, is available at Amazon in both the paperback you showed and an ebook version, and it's available at my website as well. So if that's easier, we've got it here too.
Awesome. So we'll wrap this one up. It's a pleasure having you on. We'll get you back on in the next couple months, and we'll finish up what we didn't get done this time. Dr. Erica, great having you on as the host, co-host again.
Absolutely.
Things will be wonderful in Winchester, Virginia, and everywhere south of Pennsylvania. You guys have a great weekend and a great holiday, and we'll be back on in a couple weeks. And Dr. Doni, as soon as this episode's ready to air, we'll let you know, and you can share it with all those that follow you. Okay?
Definitely will.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.